Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. We'd like to welcome everyone to our weekly session of reading Krishna book to Srila Prabhupada. And as we always do, let us offer our respectful obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and to each other. Namam Vishnuvadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti-Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvisesha Sanyavari Paskacha Deshatarane. And to each other, Vanchakalpadrubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So for all of you out there in online land, turn to chapter 28, Releasing Nanda Maharaj from the Clutches of Varuna. The Govardhan Puj ceremony took place on the new moon day. After this, there were torrents of rain and hailstorms imposed by King Indra for 7 days. 9 days of the waxing moon have passed. On the 10th day, King Indra worshipped Lord Krishna, and thus the matter was satisfactorily settled. After this, on the 11th day of the full moon, Ekadasi, Maharaj Nanda observed fasting for the whole day, and just early in the morning of the next day, Dwadasi, he went to take a bath in the river Jamuna. He entered deep into the water of the river, but he was arrested immediately by one of the servants of Varuna Dev. This servant brought Nanda Maharaj before the demigod Varuna and accused him of taking a bath in the river at the wrong time. According to astronomical calculations, the time in which he took a bath was considered demoniac. The fact was that Nanda Maharaj wanted to take a bath in the river Jamuna early in the morning before the sunrise, but somehow or other he was a little too early and he bathed at an inauspicious time. Consequently, he was arrested.
When Nanda Maharaja was taken away by one of the Varuna's servants, Nanda's companions began to call loudly for Krishna and Balram. Immediately, Krishna and Balram could understand that Nanda Maharaj had been taken by a servant of Varuna. Thus they went to the abode of Varuna, for they were placed to give protection to the inhabitants of Vrindavan, who were all unalloyed devotees of Lord. Devotees having no shelter other than Supreme Personality of Godhead naturally cry to him for help, exactly like children who do not know anything but the protection of their parents. The demigods Varuna received Lord Krishna and Balarama with great respect and said, "My dear Lord, actually at this very moment, because of your presence, my life as the demigod Varuna has become successful. Although I am the proprietor of all the treasures in the water, I know that such possessions do not make for a successful life. But at this moment, as I look at you, my life is made completely successful, because by seeing you, I no longer have to accept a material body. Therefore, O Lord, Supreme Personality of Godhead, Supreme Brahman, and Super Soul of everything, let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you. You are the Supreme Transcendental Personality. There is no possibility of imposing the influence of material nature upon you. I am very sorry that my foolish man, by not knowing what to do or what not to do, has mistakenly arrested your father, Nanda Maharaj. So I beg your pardon for the offense of my servant. I think that it was your plan to show me your mercy by your personal presence here. My dear Lord Krishna, Govinda, be merciful upon me. Here is your father. You can take him back immediately."
In this way, Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of the Godhead, rescued his father and presented him before his friends, bringing them great jubilation. Nand Maharaj was surprised that although the demigod was so opulent, he offered such respect to Krishna. That was very astonishing to Nanda, and he began to describe the incident to his friends and relatives with great wonder. Actually, I can continue. Actually, although Krishna was acting so wonderfully, Maharaj Nanda and Mother Yashoda could not think of him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Instead, they always accepted him as their beloved child. Thus Nanda Maharaj did not accept the fact that Varuna worshipped Krishna because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Rather, he took it that because Krishna was such a wonderful child, he was respected even by Varuna. The friends of Nand Maharaj, all the cowherd men, became eager to know if Krishna was actually the Supreme Personality and if he was going to give them all salvation. When they were all thus consulting among themselves, Krishna understood their minds, and in order to assure them of their destiny in the spiritual kingdom, he showed them the spiritual sky. Generally, ordinary persons are engaged simply in working hard in this material world, and they have no information that there is another kingdom or another sky which is known as the spiritual sky, where life is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. As it is stated in the Bhagavad-Gita, a person returning to that spiritual sky never returns to this material world of death and suffering.
Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is always eager to give information to the conditioned soul that there is a spiritual sky far beyond this material sky, transcendental to the innumerable universes created within the total material energy. Krishna is, of course, always very kind to every conditioned soul, but as stated in the Bhagavad-Gita, he is especially inclined to the pure devotees. Hearing their inquiries, Krishna immediately thought that his devotees in Vrindavana should be informed of the spiritual sky and the Vaikuntha planets therein.
Within the material world, every conditioned soul in the darkness of ignorance. This means that all conditioned souls are under the concept of bodily action. Everyone is under impression that he is on this material world, and with this concept of life, everyone is working in ignorance in different form of life. The activities of particular type of body are called karma or the fruitive action. All the conditioned soul being under the impression of the bodily concept are working according to their particular type of body. These activities are created with their future conditioned life because they have very little information of spiritual world. They do not generally take to spiritual activities, which are called bhakti-yoga. Those who successfully praise bhakti-yoga go directly to the spiritual world after giving up their present body, and there become situated in one of the Vaikuntha planet. The inhabitants of Vrindavan are all pure devotees. Their destination after quitting the body is Krishna Lok. They even surpass the Vaikuntha. The fact is that those who are always engaged in Krishna consciousness and mature, pure devotional service are given the chance after death to again gain Krishna's association in one of the universe within the material world. Krishna's pastimes are continuously going on, either in this universe or in another universe. Just as the sun global is passing over many places across this earthly planet, so Krishna Leela or the transcendent advent and the pastimes of Krishna are also going on continuously, either in this or another universe. The mature devotee who have complete exceed Krishna consciousness are immediately transferred to the universe where Krishna is appearing. In that universe, the devotees get their first opportunity to associate with Krishna persons and directly the training goes on as we see in the Vrindavan Leela of Krishna within this planet. Krishna therefore revealed the actual features of the Vaikuntha planet so that the inhabitants of Vrindavan could know their destination.
Thus, Krishna showed them the eternal, ever existing, spiritual sky which is unlimited and full of knowledge. Within this material world, there are different grades of forms, and according to the grade, knowledge is proportionately manifested. For example, the knowledge in the body of a child is not as perfect as the knowledge in the body of an adult man. Everywhere there are different grades of living entities in aquatic animals, in plants and trees, in the reptiles and insects, in birds and beasts, and in the civilized and uncivilized human forms of life. Above the human form of life, there are demigods, charans, siddhas, and up to Brahmalok, where Lord Brahma lives, and among these demigods, there are always different grades of knowledge. But beyond this material world, in the spiritual sky, everyone is in full knowledge, and therefore all the living entities there are engaged in devotional service to the Lord, either in the Vaikuntha planets or in Krishna Lok.
As it is confirmed in the Bhagavad-Gita, full knowledge means knowing Krishna to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Vedas and the Bhagavad-Gita, it is also stated that in the Brahma-jyoti or spiritual sky, there is no need of sunlight, moonlight, or electricity. All the planets there are self-illuminating, and all of them are eternally situated. There is no question of creation and annihilation in the Brahma-jyoti or spiritual sky. The Bhagavad-Gita also confirms that beyond the material sky, there is another eternal spiritual sky where everything is eternally existing. Direct knowledge of the spiritual sky can be had only by great sages and saintly persons who have already surpassed the influence of the three modes of material nature. By engaging in devotional service or Krishna consciousness, unless one is constantly situated on that transcendental platform, it is not possible to understand the spiritual nature.
Therefore, it is recommended that one should take to bhakti-yoga and keep himself engaged 24 hours a day in Krishna consciousness. One in Krishna consciousness can easily understand which places one beyond the reach of the modes of material nature. One in Krishna consciousness can easily understand the nature of the spiritual sky and Vaikuntha Loka. The inhabitants of Vrindavan, being always engaged in Krishna consciousness, could therefore very easily understand the transcendental nature of the Vaikuntha Lokas. Thus, Krishna led all the cowherd men headed by Nanda Maharaj to the lake where Akrura would later be shown the Vaikuntha's planetary system. They took their bath immediately and saw the real nature of the Vaikuntha Lokas. After seeing the spiritual sky and the Vaikuntha Lokas, all the men headed by Nanda Maharaj felt wonderfully blissful, and upon coming out of the lake, they saw Krishna, who was being worshipped with excellent prayers. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 28th chapter of Krishna, releasing Nanda Maharaj from the clutches of Varuna. Hari Bo!
Next slide. Should I continue? The chapter 29, the Rasa, the Ras dance introduction. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it stated that the Ras dance took place on the full moon night of the Sharad season. From the statements of the previous chapters, it appears that the festival of Govardhan Puja was performed just after the dark moon night of the month of Kartik. And thereafter, the ceremony of Bhratra Dvitiya was performed. Then the wrath of Indra was exhibited in the shape of torrents of rain and hailstorms, I think. And Lord Krishna held up Govardhan hill for 7 days until the 9th day of the moon. Thereafter, on the 10th day, the inhabitants of Vrindavan were talking amongst themselves about the wonderful activities of Krishna, and the next day Ekadashi was observed by Nand Maharaj. On the next day, Dwadasi, Nand Maharaj went to take a bath in the Ganges and was arrested by one of the men of Varuna. Then he was released by Lord Krishna. Then Nand Maharaj, along with cowherd men, was shown the spiritual sky. In this way, the full moon night of the Sharad season came to an end. The full moon night of Ashwin, it's called Sharad Purnima. It appears that from the statements of Srimad Bhagavatam that Krishna had to wait another year for such a moon before enjoying the Ras dance with the gopis. At the age of 7 years, he lifted Govardhan hill. Therefore, the Ras dance took place during his 8th year. From the Vedic literature, it appears that when a theatrical actor dances among many dancing girls, the group dance is called a Ras dance. When Krishna saw the full moon night of the Sharad season, decorated with various seasonal flowers, especially the Mallika flowers, which are very fragrant, he remembered the gopis' prayers to goddess Katyayani, wherein they prayed for Krishna to be their husband. He thought that full moon night of the Sharad season was just suitable for a nice dance. So the desire to have Krishna as the husband would then be fulfilled.
The words used in this connection in Srimad Bhagavatam are Bhagavan Api. This means that although Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and thus has no desire that needs to be fulfilled because he is always full with 6 opulences, he still wanted to enjoy the company of the gopis in the rasa dance. Bhagavan Api signifies that the dance is not like the ordinary dancing of young boys and young girls. The specific words used in Srimad Bhagavatam are Yogamayam Upasmita, which mean that this dancing with the gopis is on the platform of Yogamaya or Mahamaya. Yogamaya, not Mahamaya. The dancing of young boys and girls within the material world is in the kingdom of Mahamaya or the external energy. The rasa dance of Krishna with the gopis is on the platform of Yogamaya. The difference between the platforms of Yogamaya and Mahamaya is compared in the Chaitanya Charitamrita to the difference between gold and iron. From the viewpoint of metallurgy, gold and iron are both metals, but the quality is completely different. Similarly, although the rasa dance and Lord Krishna's association with the gopis appear like the ordinary mixing of young boys and girls. The quality is completely different. The difference is appreciated by great Vaishnavas because they can understand the difference between love of Krishna and lust.
On the Mahamaya platform, dance take place on the base of sense gratification. But when Krishna called the gopis by sounding his flute, they were hurriedly rushed toward the spot of rasa dance with transcendental desire to satisfy Krishna. The author of Sri Chaitanya Charamita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, has explained that lust means sense gratification and love means sense gratification. But for Krishna is other words. When activities are enacted on the platform of personal sense gratification, they are called material activities. But when they are enacted for the satisfaction of Krishna, they are spiritual activities. On any platform of activities, the principle of sense gratification is there. But on the spiritual platform, sense gratification is for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, whereas on the material platform, it is for the performer. For example, on the material platform, when a servant serves a master, he is trying to satisfy not the senses of his master, but rather his own senses. The servant could not serve the master if the payment stopped. That means that the servant engaged himself in the service of the master just to satisfy his own senses. On the spiritual platform, however, the servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead serves Krishna without payment, and he continues his service in all conditions. That is the difference between Krishna consciousness and material consciousness.
As mentioned above, it appears that Krishna enjoyed the rasa dance with the gopis when he was 8 years old. At that time, many of the gopis were married because in India, especially in those days, girls were married at a very early age. There are even many instances of a girls giving birth to a child at the age of 12. Under the circumstances, all the gopis who wanted to have Krishna as their husband were already married. At that time, they continued to hope that Krishna would be their husband. Their attitude toward Krishna was that of paramour love. Therefore, the loving affairs of Krishna with the gopis are called parakriya rasa. The attitude of a married man who desires another wife or a wife who desires another husband is called parakriya rasa.
Actually, Krishna is the husband of everyone because he is the supreme enjoyer. The gopis wanted Krishna to be their husband, but factually there was no possibility of his marrying all the gopis. But because they had the natural tendency to accept Krishna as their supreme husband, the relationship between the gopis and Krishna is called Parakya Ras. This Parakya Ras is ever existent in Golok Vrindavan, in the spiritual sky, where there is no possibility of the inebriety which characterizes Parakya Ras in the material world. In the material world, Parakya Ras is abominable, whereas in the spiritual world it is present in the super excellent relationship of Krishna and the gopis. There are many relationships with Krishna: master and servant, friend, parent and son, and lover and beloved. Out of all these rasas, the Parakya Ras is considered to be the topmost.
This material world is the perverted reflection of the spiritual world. It is just like the reflection of a tree on the bank of a reservoir of water. the topmost part of the tree is seen as the lowest part. Similarly, Parakya Ras, when pervertedly reflected in this material world, is most abominable. Therefore, when people imitate the rasa dance of Krishna with the gopis, they simply enjoy the perverted, abominable reflection of the transcendental Parakya Ras. There is no possibility of enjoying this transcendental Parakya Ras within the material world. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam that one should not imitate this Parakya Ras even in dream or imagination. Those who do so drink the most deadly poison.
When Krishna, the supreme enjoyer, desired to enjoy the company of the gopis on that full moon night of the Sharad season, exactly at that very moment, the moon, the lord of the stars, appeared in the sky, displaying its most beautiful features. The full moon night of the Sharad season is the most beautiful night in the year. In the Indian city of Agra, in Uttar Pradesh province, there is a great monument called the Taj Mahal, which is the tomb made of first-class marble stone. During the night of the full moon of the Sharad season, many foreigners go to see the beautiful reflection of the moon on the tomb. Thus, this full moon night is celebrated even today for its beauty. When the full moon rose in the east, it tinged everything with a reddish color. With the rising of the moon, the whole sky appeared smeared by red kumkuma. When a husband long separated from his wife returns home, he decorates the face of his wife with red kumkuma. This long expected moonrise of the Sharad season was thus smearing the eastern sky.
The appearance of the moon increased Krishna's desire to dance with the gopis. The forests were filled with fragrant flowers. The atmosphere was cooling and festive. When Lord Krishna began to blow his flute, the gopis all over Vrindavan became enchanted. The attraction to the vibrations of the flute increased 1,000 times to the rising full moon, the red horizon, the calm and cool atmosphere, and the blossoming flowers. All the gopis were by nature very much attracted to Krishna's beauty, and when they heard the vibrations of his flute, they became apparently lustful to satisfy the senses of Krishna. Immediately upon hearing the vibrations of the flute, they all left their respective engagements and proceeded to the spot where Krishna was standing. While they ran very swiftly, their earrings swung back and forth. They all rushed towards a place known as Bansi Wat. Some of them were engaged in milking cows, but they left their milking business half finished and immediately went to Krishna. One of them had just collected milk and put it in a milk pan on the stove to boil, but she did not care whether the milk is overboiled and spilled. She immediately left to go to see Krishna. Some of them were breastfeeding their small babies, and some were engaged in distributing food to the members of their families, but they left all such engagements and immediately rushed towards the spot where Krishna was playing his flute. Some were engaged in serving their husbands, and some were themselves engaged in eating, but caring neither to serve their husbands nor eat, they immediately left. Some of them wanted to decorate their faces with cosmetic ointments and to dress themselves very nicely before going to Krishna, but unfortunately they could not finish the cosmetic decorations or put on their clothes in the right way because of their anxiety to meet Krishna immediately. Their faces were decorated hurriedly and were haphazardly finished. Some even put the lower part of their clothes on the upper part of their bodies and upper on the lower part. Hare Krishna.
While the gopis were hurriedly leaving their respective places, their husbands, brothers, and fathers were all struck with wonder to know whither they were going. Being young girls, they were protected either by husbands, elder brothers, or fathers. All their guardians forbade them to go to Krishna, but they disregarded them. When the person becomes attracted by Krishna and is in full Krishna consciousness, he does not care for any worldly duties, even though very urgent. Krishna consciousness is so powerful that it gives everyone relief from all material activities. Srila Rupa Goswami has written a very nice verse wherein one gopi advises another, my dear friend, if you decide to enjoy the company of material society, friendship and love, then please do not go to see that smiling boy Govinda, who is standing on the bank of the Yamuna and playing his flute, his lips brightened by the beams of the full moonlight. Srila Rupa Goswami indirectly instructs that one who has been captivated by the beautiful smiling face of Krishna has lost all attraction for material enjoyments. This is the test of advancement in Krishna consciousness. A person advancing in Krishna consciousness must lose interest in material activities and personal sense gratification.
Some of the gopis were actually detained from going to Krishna by their husbands and were locked up by force within their rooms. Being unable to go to Krishna, they began to meditate upon his transcendental form by closing their eyes. They already had the form of Krishna within their mind. They proved to be the greatest yogis as it stated in Bhagavad-Gita. A person who is constantly thinking of Krishna within his heart with faith and love is considered to be the topmost of all yogis. Actually, yogi concentrates his mind on the form of Lord Vishnu. That is the real yoga. Krishna is the original form of all Vishnu tattvas. The gopis who could not go to Krishna personally began to meditate on him as perfect yogis. In the conditioned state of the living entities, there are two kinds of the results of fruitive activities. The conditioned living entity who is constantly engaged in sinful activities has suffering as his result, and he who is engaged in pious activities as a material enjoyment as a result. In either case, material suffering or material enjoyment, the sufferer or enjoyer is the condition by the material nature.
The Gopis Association of Krishna who assembled in the place where Krishna was appearing were the different groups. Most of the gopis were eternal companions of Krishna. As stated in the Brahma Samhita, Anand Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitavi. In the spiritual world of the associate of Krishna, especially the gopis are manifestations of the pleasure potency of Lord Krishna. They are expansion of Srimati Radharani, but when Krishna exhibits his transcendental pastimes within the material world, in some of the universes, not only in the eternal associates of Krishna come, but also those who are being promoted to the status from the material world. So, some of the gopis who joined Krishna pastimes within this material world were coming from the status of ordinary human beings. If they had been bound by fruitive actions, they were fully freed from the reactions of karma by constant meditation on Krishna. Their severely painful yearnings caused by their not being able to see Krishna freed them from all sinful reactions, and their ecstasy of transcendental love for Krishna in the absence ended all their reactions to material pious activities. The conditioned soul is subjected to birth and death, either by pious or sinful activities. But the gopis who began to meditate on Krishna transcendental both position and became purified and thus elevated to the status of the gopis, already expected by his pleasure potency. All the gopis who concentrated their minds on Krishna in their spirit of paramour love became fully purified of all the fruitive reactions of the material nature, and some of them immediately gave up their material bodies developed under the three modes of material nature.
Maharaj Parikshit heard Shukdev Goswami explain the situation of the gopis who assembled with Krishna in the Ras dance. When he heard that some of the gopis, simply by concentrating on Krishna as their paramour, became freed from all the contamination of the material birth and death, he said, the gopis did not know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They accepted him as a beautiful boy and consider him to be their paramour. So how was it possible for them to get freed from the material condition just by thinking of a paramour? One should consider here that Krishna and ordinary living beings are qualitatively one. The ordinary living beings, being part and parcel of Krishna, are also Brahma, but Krishna is the supreme Parbrahm. The question is, if it is possible for a devotee to get free from the material, contaminated stage by simply thinking of Krishna, then why should this not be possible for others who are also thinking of someone? If one is thinking of a husband or a son, or if anyone at all is thinking of another living entity, then since all living entities are also Brahm, why are all those who thus think of others not freed from the contaminated stage of material nature? This is a very intelligent question because there are always atheists imitating Krishna. In these days of Kali Yuga, there are many rascals who think themselves to be as good as Krishna and who cheat people into believing that thinking of them is as good as thinking of Krishna. Parikshit Maharaj, apprehending the future dangerous condition of the blind followers of the demonic imitators, therefore asked this question, and fortunately it is recorded in Srimad Bhagavatam to warn innocent people that thinking of an ordinary man and thinking of Krishna are not the same.
Not the same. Actually, even thinking of the demigods cannot compare with thinking of Krishna. It is warned in the Vaishnava Tantra that one who puts Vishnu, Narayan, or Krishna on the same level as the demigods is called a Pashandi or rascal. On hearing this question from Maharaj Parikshit, Shukadeva Goswami replied, "My dear king, your question is already answered, even before this incident, because Parikshit Maharaj wanted to clear up the situation. His spiritual master answered him very intelligently. Why are you again asking about the same subject matter, which has already been explained to you? Why are you so forgetful? A spiritual master is always in the superior position, so he has the right to chastise his disciple in this way." Shukadeva Goswami knew that Maharaj Parikshit asked the question not for his own understanding, but as a warning to the future innocent people who might think others to be equal to Krishna.
Shukadeva Goswami then reminded Parikshit Maharaj about the salvation of the Shishupal. Shishupal was always envious of Krishna, and because of his envy, Krishna killed him. But since Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shishupala gained salvation simply by seeing him. If an envious person can get salvation simply by concentrating his mind on Krishna, then what to speak of the gopis, who are so dear to Krishna and always think of him in love. There must be some difference between the enemies and the friends. If Krishna's enemies could get freed from the material contamination and become one with the Supreme, then certainly his dear friends like the gopis can achieve such freedom and much more. Beside that, in the Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna is called Rishikesha. Shukadeva Goswami also said that Krishna is Rishikesha, the super soul, whereas an ordinary man is a conditioned soul covered by the material body. Krishna and Krishna's body are the same because he is Rishikesha. Any person making a distinction between Krishna and Krishna's body is fool number one. Krishna is Rishikesh and Adokshajam. These two particular words have been used by Shukadeva Goswami in this instance. Rishikesh is the super soul and Adokshas is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, transcendental to the material nature. Just to show favor to the ordinary living entities, out of his causeless mercy, he appears as he is. Unfortunately, foolish persons mistake him to be an ordinary person, and so they become eligible to go to hell.
Let's stick to one paragraph each, unless it's a super show.
Okay. Sukadeva Goswami continued to inform Maharaj Parikshit that Krishna is not an ordinary person, but rather the Supreme Personality of Godhead, imperishable, immeasurable, and without any material qualities, but full of all spiritual qualities. He appears in this material world out of his causeless mercy, and whenever he appears as he is without any change. This is confirmed in Bhagavad-Gita, where the Lord says that he appears by his spiritual potency. He doesn't appear under the control of the material potency. The material potency is under his control. In the Bhagavad-Gita, it is stated that the material potency is working under his superintendence. It is also confirmed in the Brahma Samhita that the material potency, known as Durga, is acting just like a shadow, which moves with the movement of the substance. The conclusion is that if one somehow or other becomes attached to Krishna or attracted to him either because of his qualities of the beauty, opulence, fame, strength, renunciation, or knowledge, although affection or friendship, or even through lust, anger or fear, then one's salvation and freedom from material contamination are assured.
In the Bhagavad-Gita 18th chapter, the Lord states that one who is engaged in preaching Krishna consciousness is very dear to him. A preacher has to face many difficulties in his struggle to preach pure Krishna consciousness. Sometimes he has to suffer bodily injuries, and sometimes he has to meet death also. All this is taken as a great austerity on behalf of Krishna. Krishna, therefore, has said that such a preacher is very, very dear to him. If Krishna's enemies can expect salvation simply by concentrating their minds on him, then what to speak of persons who are so dear to Krishna? The conclusion should be that the salvation of those who are engaged in preaching Krishna consciousness in the world is guaranteed in all circumstances. But such preachers never care for salvation because factually one who is engaged in Krishna consciousness, devotional service has already achieved salvation. Sukadeva Goswami therefore assured King Parikshit that he should always rest assured that one who is attracted by Krishna attains liberation from material bondage because Krishna is the transcendental master of all mystic power.
When all the gopis assembled as described before Krishna, he began to speak to them, welcoming them as a discouraging them by word jugglery. Krishna is the supreme speaker. He is the speaker of Bhagavad-Gita. He can speak on the highest elevated subject of philosophy, political, economic, everything. And he also spoke before the gopis who were so dear to him. He wanted to enchant them by the words juggler, and thus he began to speak as follows. O, o ladies of Vrindavan, Krishna said, you are very fortunate and you are very dear to me. I am very much pleased that you have come here, and I hope everything is well in Vrindavan. Now please order me. What can I do for you? What is the purpose of your coming here in the dead of night? Kindly take your seat and let me know what I can do for you.
The gopis had come to Krishna to enjoy his company, to dance with him, embrace him, and kiss him. And when Krishna began to receive them very officially, showing all kinds of etiquette, they were surprised. He was treating them like ordinary society women. Therefore, they began to smile among themselves, and though they were eagerly listened to Krishna talk in that way, they were surprised. Then Krishna began to instruct them. My dear friends, you must know that it is now the dead of night and the forest is very dangerous. At this time, all the ferocious jungle animals, the tigers, bears, jackals, and wolves are prowling in the forest. Therefore, it is very dangerous for you. You cannot select a secure place now. Everywhere you go, and you will find that all these animals are loitering to find their prey. I think, therefore, that you are taking a great risk in coming here in the dead of night. Please turn back immediately without delay.
When he saw that they continued to smile, he said, I very much appreciate your bodily features. All of you have nice, very thin waists. All of the gopis there were exquisitely beautiful. They are described by the word Sumadhyama. The standard of beauty of a woman is said to be Sumadhyama, when the middle portion of the body is slender. Krishna wanted to impress on them that they were not old enough to take care of themselves. Actually, they required protection. It was not very wise for them to come in the dead of the night to Krishna. Krishna also indicated that he was young and that they were young girls. It does not look very well for young girls and boys to remain together in the dead of night. After hearing this advice, the gopis did not seem very happy. Therefore, Krishna began to stress the point in a different way.
My dear friends, I can understand that you have left your homes without the permission of your guardians. Therefore, I think your mothers, your fathers, your elder brothers, and even your sons, and what to speak of your husbands, we must be very anxious to find you. And
A little slower and hold it to your mouth. A little slower.
Slowly, louder. Okay. As long as you are here, they must be searching in different places, and their minds must be very agitated. So don't tarry. Please go back and make them peaceful.
When the gopis appeared to be a little bit disturbed and angry from hearing the advice of Krishna, they diverted their attention to looking at the beauty of the forest. At that time, the whole forest was illuminated by the bright shining of the moon, and the air was blowing very silently. over the blooming flowers, and the green leaves of the trees were moving in the breeze. Krishna took the opportunity of their looking at the forest to advise them. I think you have come out to see the beautiful Vrindavan forest on this night. He said, but you must now be satisfied. So, return to your homes without delay. I understand that you are all very chaste women. So now that you have seen the beautiful atmosphere of the Vrindavan forest, please return home and engage in the faithful service of your respective husbands. Some of you must have babies by this time. Although you are very young, you must have left your small babies at home and they must be crying. Please immediately go back home and just feed. I can also understand that you have very great affection for me, and out of that transcendental affection, you have come here, hearing my playing on the flute. Your feelings of love and affection for me are very appropriate because I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All living creatures are my parts and parcels, and naturally they are affectionate to me. So this affection for me is very welcome. I congratulate you for this. Now you can go back to your homes. Another thing I must explain to you is that for a chaste woman, service to the husband without duplicity is the best religious principle. Not only should a woman be faithful and chaste to her husband, but she should also be affectionate to the friends of her husband, obedient to the father and mother of her husband, and affectionate to the younger brothers of her husband. And most importantly, a woman must take care of her children.
In this way, Krishna explained the duty of a woman. He also stressed the point of serving the husband. Even if he is not of very good character, or even if he is not very rich or fortunate, or even if he is old or invalid on account of continued diseases, whatever her husband's condition, a woman should not divorce her husband if she actually desires to be elevated to the higher planetary systems after leaving this body. Besides that, it is considered abominable in society if a woman is unfaithful and goes searching for another man. Such habits will deter a woman from being elevated to the heavenly planets, and the results of such habits are very degrading. A married woman should not search for a paramour, for this is not sanctioned by the Vedic principles of life. If you think you are very much attached to me and you want my association, I advise you not to personally try to enjoy me. It is better for you to go home, simply talk about me and think of me. And by this process of constantly remembering me and chanting my names, you will surely be elevated to the spiritual platform. There is no need to stand near me. Please go back home.
The instruction given herein by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to the gopis was not at all sarcastic. Such instructions should be taken very seriously by all honest women. The chastity of women is specifically stressed herein by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, this principle should be followed by any serious woman who wants to be elevated to a higher status of life. Krishna is the center of all affection for all living creatures. When this affection is developed for Krishna, one surpasses and transcends all Vedic injunctions. This was possible for the gopis because they saw Krishna face to face. This is not possible for any woman in the conditioned state. Unfortunately, Sometimes a rascal following the philosophy of a monism or oneness very irresponsibly takes advantage of this Rasa Lila to imitate the behavior of Krishna with the gopis, entice many innocent women and mislead them in the name of spiritual realization. As a warning, Lord Krishna has herein hinted that what was possible for the gopis is not possible for ordinary women. Although a woman can actually be elevated by advanced Krishna consciousness, she should not be enticed by an imposer who says that he is Krishna. She should concentrate her devotional service activities in chanting about Krishna and meditating upon him, as is advised herein. One should not follow the men called Sahajayas, the so called devotees who take everything very lightly.
When Krishna spoke in such a discouraging way to the gopis, they became very sad, for they thought that their desire to enjoy the Ras dance with Krishna would be frustrated. Thus, they became full of anxiety. Out of great sadness, the gopis began to breathe very heavily. Instead of looking at Krishna face to face, they bowed their heads and looked at the ground, and they began to draw various types of curved lines on the ground with their toes. They were shedding heavy tears, and their cosmetic decorations were being washed from their faces. The water from their eyes mixed with the kumkum on their breast and fell to the ground. They could not say anything to Krishna but simply stood there silently. By their silence, they expressed that their hearts were grievously wounded.
The gopis were not ordinary women. In essence, they were on an equal level with Krishna. They are his eternal associates. As it is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita, they are expansions of the pleasure potency of Krishna. And as his potency, they are not different from him. Although they were depressed by the words of Krishna, they did not like to use harsh words against him. Yet they wanted to rebuke Krishna for his unkind words, and therefore they began to speak in faltering voice. They did not like to use harsh words against Krishna because he was their dearmost their heart and soul. The gopis had only Krishna within their hearts. They were completely surrendered and dedicated souls. Naturally, when they heard such unkind words, they tried to reply, but in the attempt, torrents of tears fell from their eyes. Finally, they managed to speak.
Krishna, they said, you are very cruel. You should not talk like that. We are full-fledged surrendered soul. Please accept us and don't talk in that cruel way. Of course, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead and can do whatever you like, but it is not worthy of your position to treat us in such a cruel way. We have come to you, leaving everything behind, just to take shelter of your lotus feet. We know that you are complete independent and can do whatever you like. But we request you, don't reject us. We are your devotees. You should accept us as Lord Narayana accepted his devotee. There are many devotees of Lord Narayana who worship him for salvation, and he offers them salvation. Similarly, how can you reject us when we have no shelter other than your lotus feet?
O dear Krishna, they continued, you are the supreme instructor, there is no doubt about it. Your instructions to women to be faithful to their husbands and merciful to their children, to take care of household affairs and to be obedient to the elder members of the family are surely just according to the tenets of the Shastras. But we know that one may perfectly observe all those instructions of the Shastras by keeping oneself under the protection of your lotus feet. Our husbands, friends, family members, and children are all dear and pleasing to us only because of your presence. For you are the super soul of all living creatures. Without your presence, one is worthless. When you leave the body immediately dies, and according to the injunctions of the Shastras, a dead body must immediately be thrown into a river or burnt. Therefore, ultimately, you are the dearmost personality in this world. By placing our faith and love in your personality, we are assured of never being bereft of husband, friends, sons, or daughters. If a woman accepts you as the supreme husband, then she will never be bereft of all of her husband, as in the bodily concept of life. If we accept you as our ultimate husband, then there is no question of being separated, divorced, or widowed. You are the external husband, eternal son, eternal friend, and eternal master. And one who enters into a relationship with you is eternally happy. Since you are the teacher of all religious principles, your lotus feet have to be worshipped first. Accordingly, the Shastras state Acharya Upasana, the worship of your lotus feet, is the first principle. Besides that, as stated in the Bhagavad-Gita, you are the only enjoyer, you are the only proprietor, and you are the only friend. As such, we have come to you, leaving aside all so called friends, society, and love, and now you have become our enjoyer. Let us be everlastingly enjoyed by you. Be our proprietor, for that is your natural claim, and be our supreme friend, for you are naturally so. Let us thus embrace you as the supreme beloved.
Haribol, so that concludes our 1 hour of reading Krishna book to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada, for allowing us to come and read your Krishna book to you. And because this is a long chapter, the Rasa Dance introduction will conclude the rest of this chapter next week. So as we always do, let us offer respectful obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and to each other. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti-vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paskacha Deshatarne. And to each other, Vanchakalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Jai Krishna Book, Shri Gauda Bhakta Vrinda, Hare Krishna. See you here next week, same time. Hare Krishna.